We are much greater than we seem, and every individual needs to be seen for their individuality, their diversity of background, the place on the land where they lived. There's great knowledge from our communities that brought us here, from our ancestors till now.
Welcome to the Open Nose podcast. Our study group includes me, Kiana Gearhart, Nora Mortimer,
Hi,
and Angela Thompson.
Hello.
Our guest today is Gail Longo, the founder and president of the Maria Montessori Language and Cultural Center in Seattle, Washington. Grab a snack and your notebook. Let's get ready to study.
Thank you. My name is Gail Longo, and I'm 81 years old now. Today is my mother's birthday, so right on the solstice, and it's a very wonderful time for me to be reflecting about my life and my work with you. I began a career in education after I graduated from the university, and I don't feel like I was fully prepared by the university that I attended, although they did their best on teaching to work with people from kindergarten through 12th grade. So I still have that certificate, and that has been wonderful because in my passage through education, it has been invaluable to me. But in college, I was looking at your little list of questions, and so I thought about it. And in college, I began to wonder if there was another system to individualize education other than the one that I had been prepared for. And so many years later, after teaching in public schools, I discovered the Montessori method of teaching children, which was more related to the science of human development and appropriate presentations to the children about life and following them through their questions about life. Because like you said, Angela, they are wondering people. They go around and they want to know, what is this? What is this? And even before they can talk. So I began to study early childhood and was thrilled to find the Montessori point of view, which created a different system than the one that most of us have attended in our lives.
Why do you think that the system, even though there is a better way things could be done, why do you think the system still does the traditional way of teaching?
That's still my question.
Mm.
I worked very hard as a parent with my first child, going through the system of raising a little boy and going to community colleges to find out more about their development and their needs. And eventually I gave up my teaching role in the traditional system and began to work with this little being and dance with him and sing with him and tell stories with him, but mostly about reality, not the other. So in answering your question, why do you think this? I don't know, because I began a journey to bring it into the view of public education. And I feel like my training in early childhood began with a community college where moms were all gathered together, and we had guides from the college. And to become a teacher of the little ones, I joined a co-op and had parents working with me and a guide from the college. And I loved it. I loved it. And then when it came time to put him in school, I put him in a private school because they had asked me to come and teach there. And it was still pretty much traditional, except when you taught early education. Mm-hmm. And there they had a variety of things to do. I just think there's resistance, and I'd like to ask that question myself to the world. because Dr. Montessori was an advocate for peace. And in her later years, when she was in her 70s, she became a real warrior, if I can use that word. She became a real advocate, not a warrior, but for peace. And she was very strong about that because she had taught all over the world and with people everywhere and children everywhere. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi invited her to come and teach the untouchables in India. She said something like, children are the same all over the world. And she went. And when she came back from her 7 years of involvement and more with those children, she had learned an awful lot about the environment. I mean, she knew all this before because she was a doctor. Anyway, I'm telling you about her life, but I don't think that the people who create education for children now understand what it means to be a human being and our role as human beings in learning to live peacefully with one another. And now we have great studies that confirm the things she learned from her observations of children through her whole life about ways in which we can change the environments, be aware of our environments, and educate our children. And so I'm still trying to raise that awareness that we are much greater than we seem. And every individual needs to be seen for their individuality, their diversity of background, the place on the land where they lived. There's great knowledge from our communities that brought us here, from our ancestors till now. And I think, well, I love John Dewey too, if you've ever heard of him, because he started a school and invited Montessori to come here and teach. And he was from the University of Chicago, and he started a program, but nothing has endured as long that I know of. I mean, there are many wonderful programs for children to learn in, but this one is a scientifically based program that looks at the individual. And John Dewey appreciated her, although many people couldn't understand. So I don't know, Angela. If you have any insight, let me know. You may all know some other wonderful things that have grown out of our public education. And we have great teachers that have come from that, but there was not a system that helped them, that glued them together for the intention of helping children learn. That's what I think. I mean, there were great programs. Yours isn't the only one, but it's scientific.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have experience in a wide range of different education systems. Can you kind of compare how they operate differently from Montessori and give a little like benefits and consequences, pros and cons of Montessori to kind of show both sides? A lot of people might not be aware of Montessori as an idea in general.
Well, I can't say that I'm an expert on anything, but I also loved the Waldorf schools, which were started very spiritually along the same time that Montessori was developing programs. And I love much of their ways of doing hands-on work with children in areas of art, music. I don't know all of them. There have been some that aren't even known to most Americans because they were people who came from other countries here. And so I've touched on learning about them. I keep going back and trying to read all the good values that each one contains. But Dr. Montessori was a physician, and she was one of the first women to become a physician in Italy. And that was against all odds because women weren't supposed to, that was in the movement for women to be able to begin careers outside of the home, as well as develop their understanding of how they could improve their home lives. So I kind of clung to her because it made so much sense. She wrote a lot of books. She taught all over the world. I don't know about these other groups, but I know that each of them contributes something to the goodness on the planet and loving children. I think it has to do with our love for our children, all of us. Whoever wants to be a mother and have a family with a husband, or if today there are women together that want to raise children without a husband, there are men that want to raise children without a wife. But there's something in each of us that we need to know about our humanity and how we've developed through time. So although I love John Dewey and what he did in Chicago and how he started lab schools with young children, Dr. Montessori did that too. I can't say that I can compare them. I love the Reggio Emilia approach too, because I was in Italy for a while when the front page of the news said Reggio Emilia is the best preschool in the world right now. And then I looked at photographs, and behind the children and the teachers in the photographs, I saw Montessori materials. I saw collections of all kinds of materials that were being sorted, and they went way beyond with art. They took some ideas, I think, from America and in the ways that adults can participate with children. Montessori had a way of providing an environment which she created. She created them originally with young children that were in the slums, children who had suffered from earthquakes, children who had worked in the mines, children who lost their parents, children who had learning disabilities or physical disabilities, because she worked as a doctor, first of all, in studying how children were being treated. And she saw their needs, and she saw that even though people were trying to give them good food and care, they didn't understand what the needs of the children were to blossom. I always wondered how to individualize education when I was in college. And I think she sealed the passageway for us to learn that. And it doesn't just involve one teacher, but it may, and sometimes people just have natural empathy for children. I can say that I had a lot of ignorance. I still probably do, about how to develop empathy and connection. But I did have a wonderful opportunity. So I don't know if I've answered that question, Nora. What do you think? I can't really go through it all. There's so many different ways. I just know traditional education was to get the children off the streets and get them working when they were immigrants. And the parents had to survive here. And I'm making a film on that starts with immigration, but it also touches on the people who lived here before we were immigrants, before my family immigrated here, or before people were brought here without their consent. And we have to look at that. We have to look at, why did that happen? Why did education start that way? What have our children learned? How have they suffered? How did they continue to suffer? Because adults continue to react in ways that are violent, and children learn that violence, and we live in a society full of violence, but we also live in families and neighborhoods that are loving and caring and exciting and beautiful. And we have beautiful environments here and in other places. And we just need to recognize that and be grateful for those gifts that we have inside of us. And each child is born with a unique personality, and they need to have people who understand them. And most of us as parents are amateurs.
Well, then here's a question. We all kind of know what the average day is like for a student who's in a public school or a private school or your regular charter school. It's a very structured kind of day. You do this, then you go to this, and then you go to this topic. What is the average day like for a student in a Montessori school?
It starts with infants and toddlers, and it's developed that way after Montessori went on her way after she died. First of all, the environment is set up differently. Children need movement. They can't be sitting for long periods of time um, unless they're interested. And most of the time, they want to move. So the environment is set up for their movement. Dr. Montessori was the one who studied them and saw that the room didn't be all in desks and rows. Although I think if you look at the old photos, you see that there were tables and desks and they were all kind of jammed together. So it took a while before it migrated into places where children could move around. She experimented and learned from the children by, and this was little ones up to the age of 7 and in Italy. And there were shelves to take the works down she had created for them that she had borrowed from other people's ideas at that time. There were lots of good ideas that were going on at that time in learning about children in the Casa dei Bambini, I think. Um, Everything was locked up. The guide was there. She actually didn't have any real teachers at the time, but the guide was late. But the children got there and the janitor let them in early. And this may be a fable, but I believe it's true. The cupboards were closed and the children wanted to use them. And so they went and opened the cupboards and they took out the materials and they started working. We call it working because when you are excited about doing something, you probably know there's a time where you start it and the time goes so fast, probably like this interview, and you think you have enough time for it, but there's an interruption and you can't complete that task, whatever it is. And kids like to do things over and over again. They like to repeat. They like to work with the same materials over and over again because they're teaching themselves. They had had lessons with the guide, but they didn't need rewards for anything. They didn't need punishment for anything. They learned how to live in a community together of mixed ages, which is very important. Then she did the 3-year mixed ages, and teachers usually stayed with the children during those years. In the Waldorf school, I think they stay with the children all the way through. They have a whole set that they follow all the way from beginning to end. I kind of like this way of moving on along with your brain as it develops with different teachers who are prepared to teach you at different stages in your life because your body, your chemistry, everything changes. Well, anyway, they took everything out and they started working with it. And then she realized that, hey, they needed shelves in the environment where they could just go over and choose whatever they wanted to do. And the environment was usually based on reality and practical daily life. So children wanted to learn how to sweep. They wanted to learn how to pour their own juice. They wanted to use knives and make their own snacks. And when they learned also sanitary habits so that they could do that. They wanted to know how to blow your nose when it's dripping. Um, they just wanted to know everything. And she wanted to have indoor and outdoor environments for them, not just being in some kind of a place where there are windows looking on the outside, but a place where if you wanted to move and go outside, you could. And so all of this developed over a long period of time. It developed in her travels to other countries, and especially her time in India, because that's when they did a lot of outdoor education. Children got outside a lot. I've collected books on Montessori, and this tells the journey from 1907 to 2007, what she did and how her ideas evolved, and who were the artists who helped to create the environments for the children, who were the people who made the furniture for the children. Because our kindergartens, as far as I know, everything that we had were made for their sizes. So there was a variety of sizes for children to sit in the chairs that they could, and also to work on the floor with materials if they wanted to. If they wanted to lie down on the floor, they could lie down and do something on the floor. They also had little low tables, varieties of things for them to bring their work to. So I don't know that that happens in all of the other programs, but it's certainly different from our public schools. Although, you know, when a teacher gets an idea and they see something, they say, wow, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to try that. But they haven't gone through the developmental process of training their minds to observe the children. And that's very important. And I think that we can begin to do something like that with our adolescents who are going into career development and education. It's beginning now in Oakland, California. They have programs where they have trainings, but I don't know that that's Montessori, but they're beginning to take kids who don't know what their purpose in life is, and they don't know what they want to do, and they should have learned it by the time they were gone through high school, but it doesn't always happen because the way that we teach them, oftentimes you'll hear them say, I'm bored, or now you'll see them on their computers or their phones. They don't know how to relate to one another because they haven't had the joy of being together, working on something that inspires them to work with their hands and their minds. Because that's very important. You can't just sit in a chair and listen to somebody talk all the time. I mean, you were bored.
You raised an excellent point, and I hadn't thought about it while you were talking. I was thinking about children needing to move, and we're the only species that expects kids to sit still. You know, that you don't move, just sit here. And if you look at all the other mammals, they're okay with the kids running around and getting moving, but they're learning how to be an elephant, or they're learning how to be a chimpanzee in the process of the movement. So very insightful.
And are we being responsible when we overpopulate? Because I know we love our children, but will we cause them pain in the future because we're not really looking at how we are creating environments for them to learn in? Are we creating ghettos by building all these big high-rise places to house people?